that a hot rodder would want hydrogen. We have no carbon at all.
We're at Arrington Performance to check out this truck. It says hydrogen on it, and that's not a joke. We need to figure out how this thing works. The mad scientist here is Mike Copeland. I know everybody's probably thinking, oh, it's hydrogen, it has to be boring. Everything that's good for the environment is boring.
Yeah. This is a 6.2 liter GM LS. We topped it with a Magnuson 2650 supercharger. It's a LS3 block. It has LSA cylinder heads. All the internals are Fords. It has a K1 crank, K1 rods. It has Weisco pistons, has total seal rings in it. You know, there was just so much unknown. So we wanted to overbuild it to the point that it could, if we messed up and got too much timing in it or detonated it or whatever, that it wasn't going to blow up. So we overbuilt it like crazy. This engine makes 500 horsepower at 9 pounds of boost. Hydrogen has more energy, but it's less efficient to burn, so you need to make some power. You have the opportunity, obviously, to turn the boost up. Hydrogen has a very high theoretical octane rating, so there's not a straight conversion to get that number. Theoretically, and by all the testing, hydrogen is equal to about 130 octane. So there have been hydrogen engines run with 25 pounds of boost on an 11-to-1 motor. There's a lot of opportunity. We're injector limited, so all of the parts, as you can imagine, are experimental. We're working really hard to have some production-based stuff coming, and it'll be bigger. We have 16 fuel injectors. There are 8 in this block that we machine, and there are 8 in the traditional location down in the blower. So we have to use 16 because they're designed for like a small 3-cylinder motor. Nobody ever thought that a hot rodder would want hydrogen. I'm a hot rodder. I wanted hydrogen.
So just looking at under the hood, the only thing that really sticks out is it not being a normal hot rod truck is like this.
Yep.
What does that do?
That's the fuel regulator. So we put, we have 5,000 PSI roughly in the tank. We regulate it down to about 110 PSI at the injector. So that's the regulator. We put 5,000 in, it lets 109 out.
This is the coolest thing, because even I was blown away when I heard about this, that it's not boring. It makes 500 horsepower, supercharged. It's a V8. It makes all the right sounds.
Yep. Yeah, that was a big question, right? When we started down that path, is what does it sound like? And truthfully, we didn't know. We got it all together, and the first time we fired it up, all it would do was idle, because that's how you kind of start the calibration world. So it was sitting there idling. I was behind the truck. There's no smell at all. Only thing you get is a little bit of water out of the tailpipes when you first start it. And once the exhaust heats up, that goes away. I was standing behind the thing and I'm listening to it run. I remember thinking to myself, we just changed the world. This is completely outside of the norm for what you would expect or what you would think you would see. And here it is.
Well, can you fire it up and rev it so we can hear it?
Sure.
I know how you said when you were at the Optima Challenge that people thought this was fake.
Yeah.
Because you look at this thing from a distance, it's this big thing in the back, looks like a giant nitrous bottle, and it says hydrogen huge on it. Like, you almost think it's a joke. Yeah. Like, it looks like big Acme hydrogen bottle. but you get closer and you're like, wait a minute, this thing's real.
Yeah, we had lots of people crawling under the truck looking for a gas tank because they didn't believe it would run on processed water.
Processed water. That's a funny term. This thing's just awesome. Yeah, it doesn't smell like anything.
There's no smell.
It just smells like...
Hydrogen is unique from the standpoint that there's no cold enrichment. So if this was all gasoline, we'd have to put a cold enrichment in it to add more fuel when it's cold.
Right.
Hydrogen doesn't require that.
Huh.
All we
It's
do
already
is,
gas.
Yeah.
Right? Because gasoline has to vaporize it. You don't burn the liquid fuel. So you have to, when its engine's still cold, it doesn't fully evaporate. So you have to put more fuel in so the light ends can evaporate.
Right.
So you can get the proper air fuel ratio. Because this is already a gas going in right where it is.
Yeah. We increase the RPM just a little bit based on temperature to give it, because of the cold of the oil and everything else.
that sound awesome?
Yeah, it's like regular
Perfect.
hot rod truck.
If you did, if I didn't let you see the tank and you got in it and drove off, you would not know.
Yeah.
Couldn't even tell where the tailpipes were. Now I can see the water coming out. Nothing. Literally nothing. So what happens if this was running in a garage and you were like letting it run in there? Would you kill yourself?
No.
You could let this run in your garage with the door closed forever?
Yes, until it ran out of fuel. You could literally, I mean, you got temperature, right? Exhaust temperature, but excluding the temperature, you could put a hose on the exhaust, run it to a mask, and just stand there and breathe forever. We've run emission tests on it. We ran the EPA certification tests, FTP 74, FTP 75, and USO 6, which are the three key kind of tests to validate where you're at emission wise. And there is no carbon. It actually, there's more carbon in the air than comes out the tailpipes. So it actually cleans a little bit of the carbon out of the air as it burns it.
Interesting.
Yeah, with the EPA test, they actually put the vehicle in a controlled cell and they look at everything that comes in and everything that comes out, not just the tailpipes, the evaporative, everything out of the entire vehicle.
Like you could have some gear loops built on a header and that would throw off the test.
Yeah, you got to make sure you have no leaks. And the engine in this is based on a 2014 Cadillac CTSV or a 2014 Camaro. So either LS3 or LSA. They take the government takes all of the emissions, it puts them together, and they come up with a number, and it's defined as a bin. This engine, when it was new, was a bin 150. Lower numbers are better. So in 2023, a brand new Corvette is certified at bin 125. They've gotten that much better. The government regulations have changed that you have to be that much better. Our first run with this truck with no catalytic converters, no exhaust after treatment, no tank evap because we don't evap anything.
Right.
Our first run was a bin 70. Wow. So we're that much better. Now, in 2035 is when today all the regulations are slated to change. And the requirement for 2035 is that they be a SULEV rating, which is once you get past bin, then you go to SULEV.
And where does bin end?
Bin 50.
50, all right.
Yeah, and then you go into SULEV, and it goes, 40, 30, 20, 10. Based on some knocks that we get at a couple specific points, the heavy acceleration cycle, we know where those are. We're working to try to do them, but we have a backup plan that will allow us to be SULEV 20.
Huh.
So
is that even from the combustion, or is that just like crankcase oil that's left on the cylinder wall?
We're not really seeing that, even when we measure for carbon. So our total seals are sealing it up. They're working exceptionally well, and we have a little bit of an elaborate crankcase ventilation system that we created for this. But what it really is we have no carbon at all. We just need to control in a couple of finite places the NOx. Our NOx on our first run was 0.086. The system we're going to put in will take 90% of that away.
I'm trying not to ask questions that I think you won't want to answer.
I just won't answer.
What's the bin number or the SULEV number of like the best gasoline burning hybrid car, whatever, that you could, like a Prius or something like that? If you
just do internal combustion engine, okay, because they calculate electric for emission ratings different than they do gasoline.
Huh.
So if you use anything gasoline based, I don't know of anything that's where we are today. I don't know of anybody that's at bin 70. There's some bin 90s, mid 90s out there, but that's some really small engine that's really limited on power and specifically targeted certain areas. But I think we're as good or better than any internal combustion engine in the world today.
And you're making over twice the power with an engine that's
we're
fun.
The other ones that are making bin 70 or bin 80 or 90, we're probably 5 times the power they are.
Oh, so they're little engines.
Yeah, and we're doing it with no exhaust after.
That's the big piece, right? There's nothing. You've done literally
Headers,
nothing.
Straight stainless exhaust.
Right.
Yep.
Wow.
So that's the hydrogen part of it, right?
Yeah.
So hydrogen, it's impossible to make carbon with hydrogen. You have to induce something that burns that creates carbon if you're going to get any carbon out of this truck.
Well, I guess probably somebody watching this would think, what happens if somebody rear ends you and that tank pops?
Well, this tank is DOT certified, so for crash. So this is what they make them in stage 3 and stage 4. This is a spun aluminum tank that's wrapped with carbon fiber.
Oh.
So if you were to crash it, it doesn't matter. It's almost impossible to puncture. And if you did, it would just, the hydrogen will go straight up. This is actually designed for use in a bus.
Okay.
So they use them in a lot of, they'll put a number of them on the roof of a bus. So, but there's a company that builds these, and this one was manufactured in Canada. Interesting story, when we built this truck, of course, real tight timeline, and I ordered this tank, and it took me, it was like an act of Congress, right? Because when you go into this world, if people don't know who you are and don't know what you're doing, they're very suspicious, and they're very guarded, right? So I finally get through the tank manufacturer. They build me a tank. I get all that. We're shipping it into the country, so because it was made in Canada. Customs seized it because they thought it was a bomb.
Right. Yeah.
So we made the truck run using welding tanks full of hydrogen. So but when we showed up at SEMA, we didn't even have a fuel tank because Customs, it actually arrived here on opening day of SEMA. So, but you know, there's so many things like that, and so many pieces of this battle to get this thing to running and driving and get to where we are today. You know, we're not a huge company, right? We're not some well-known whatever OE or whoever. And so when I call these companies and say I need these parts, they're like, what? You need what? Yeah, I do. What are you doing with it? Well, I'm building a truck that runs on hydrogen. You can't do that. Yeah, I know you can't, but we can.
I've seen other videos on YouTube. It's weird because there's not a whole lot about this, and I don't even know if this video will get a bunch of views because I think somebody might like manipulate it behind the scenes. Hopefully not. But the popular videos about hydrogen are the people saying bad stuff about it. Well, that it will sit in your tank and go away after 3 days or something like that.
Because they don't understand permeable and they never engineered for it. There's liquid hydrogen, there's gaseous hydrogen. Right? Liquid hydrogen has to be maintained at a cold temperature like -128. In the past, BMW did some work where they did a liquid hydrogen car, and they actually used the hydrogen to create the cold to keep the tank, to keep the hydrogen as a liquid.
So that actually depleted it over time.
If it sat for 2 weeks, it would empty the tank, right? If you're using gaseous hydrogen and any of it ever comes out and depletes, it's because you have a leak. It doesn't require to be maintained at any temperature. Hot, it builds more pressure than it does cold, but it doesn't require any specific tanks. In a gaseous state, you can use it at 350 bar, which is where we're at. You could do 700 bar, which is where, like the Toyota Myra, the fuel cell car, that's where they're at. And then there is a 10,000 PSI rating, and but that's not very popular. As an example, every Amazon distribution center in the world, as well as every Walmart distribution center, all their high-lows run on hydrogen. So they're all fuel cell. So they use hydrogen to create electricity to run the trucks. So they manufacture it on site, refill on site, and that's what they do. So people don't know about it. They don't think about the fact that hydrogen is all over the place. They just think that it's the Hindenburg.
Yeah. Well, about you said the people that have all their negative comments about stuff, hydrogen on YouTube and stuff in the different videos, and you know, we've seen the guys with the whiteboard and they tell you why this
engineering explained. Right,
yeah, it's okay, this won't work.
I watched that video too, and I'm watching it like, this guy hates hydrogen, he hates ethanol, this guy hates everything.
Right, but the reality is like, hey, don't tell the engine that it won't work because it doesn't know any better, but it's working, right? So I get it. This is what you used to think in theory, right? You're mathing all this stuff out, and I'm not against that, but the reality is that engine doesn't know that. It's working. It does all these things that everyone says it can't. It does. It does it over and over again. So it's like, shut up with the people that are typing and theorizing.
Theory's only theory.
Yeah.
This works.
It's not the real world.
Right. It actually works because you can combust it, and utilizing direct injection and turbocharging, but supercharging, you can get the efficiency that people say you can't, right? And obviously you guys have worked really closely with Bosch and your other engineering partners to figure out how to manage the pros and the cons of the fuel. Like I said, you had that list of 12 things you started off working on, and I know when I first started talking to you, you'd worked through like 9 of the 12. Now you said this morning, like, you got them all licked now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's still more, right?
Right.
But
that was the common 12 issues that people that have been trying to do hydrogen have said, hey, you make so much progress, then you kind of run into this wall. So here are these 12 hurdles that you got to overcome to make this real.
Yeah. Yeah. And the 9 of them we solved before we even had this running.
Yeah.
So, but
well, it helps that you had some friends that are part of the project that have been working on this for, it's not like y'all just picked this up
no
2 years ago. You guys have been working on this for decades.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express and get up the next morning to build this. If you engineer anything or design anything, you do the analytical work, and the analytical tells you you do this and you get this. You do this, you get this. You do this, you get this. Right? So a lot of what the 12 issues were because of analyticals. I'm not an analytical guy, right? I mean, I know it, we do it, all of those things. But the reality of it is, I was a technician before I was an engineer, right? I question the norm. And that's how we got where we are with this. Is the people that support me, the people from Bosch, they listen and they respect me when I question, and then together we work on a solution to solve it. This is the proof.
This is the solution. Yeah.
It just works.
I think that says a lot about, you were a technician before you started the engineering process. Well, a lot of these engineers will come out of school and they'll draw up blueprints for stuff, but they don't understand how things actually work in the real world, or building things, and they'll draw up blueprints that won't actually work because they don't know how things work.
Yeah, they have to learn.
Yeah.
You have to pay to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. See all this gray hair? I've been paying for a long time.
This will be one of those things I'll look back on when I'm an old man. Be like, I remember the first time I rode in a hydrogen vehicle. I was only 27.
There you go.
Now everybody has one. I'm afraid to like close this.
Go ahead.
This is T56?
It's a TKX.
Okay. I guess I could have looked at that by looking at the knob.
That's okay.
You guys built the Hellcat Charger for roadkill, didn't you?
We did, yep.
Yeah, that was the first I had heard of diversified creations.
That was the first ever Hellcat swap in the world.
So you got a long history of being the first ever something in the world. This is just part of it.
I did my first LS swap in my barn in 1999.
Wow. Were you working at GM back then?
Yeah.
That makes all the supercharger sounds you'd expect. Why did you choose this truck?
I had it.
Good enough.
Plus, I needed something that would get attention.
It handles good.
Yeah.
What kind of suspension you got on it?
It's a full TCI chassis.
Oh, wow.
Involved with all QA1 double adjustable coilovers. It's got bare brakes on it, 14-inch rotors, 650 calipers. It's got a McLeod clutch in it. It's got a Mosier rear axle. It's a 350 ratio with a Detroit True Track.
Take that, haters.
You would never ever know. You would never know. It makes all the right sounds. It makes power.
Yeah, handle it.
Honestly, this thing
won't work. It won't run. It won't go. Huh? How about that?
This thing is faster than what you would expect a truck that looks like this to be, because most of them are just, you know, they got a 5.3 in it and some Flowmasters or something. They're not making power. They're just looking cool.
Yep. Well, obviously you can tell when the blower comes on, and
yeah,
we're only at 9 pounds of boost. So when we get bigger ejectors, we'll turn that up. So I think it's realistic to make 600, 650 maybe with this.
And this is a kit that you plan on offering so other people can do this to their
so
cars?
What we're working on for this type of package is that I'm working with the EPA. We're going to certify it for swapping into kit cars. So if you build a new kit car, we want to be certified for that. So people will be able to buy this package and bolt it into their Corvette Grand Sport kit car, their whatever, Cheetah kit car, their off-road dune buggy.
I think this is the future of motorsports.
I think it is too.
Because the EPA can, if there's no carbon, if there's zero emissions essentially, this is a way for motorsports to be able to take off the lot streetcar, convert it to go racing and not damage the emissions. So all the stuff about the whole RPM Act and all that whole fuss, like where the EPA isn't happy with racing, this is the solution to it. It makes it where people can go buy production cars, they can convert them. You can actually build custom built race cars. I mean, NASCAR should be looking at this versus anything else. Mm-hmm. This is where it needs to be, because it's the answer.
Right now, I think it's the only answer. Electric cars are fast for a little while. I mean, I have a customer with a Tesla Plaid, and the thing's horrifyingly fast, like the first 3 times you step on the pedal. And then the 4th time, it's nowhere near as fast. And if you run it hard like that, it depletes the battery in no time.
You're gonna switch cars halfway through the race.
There's no sound.
Yeah, that's the lamest part.
Yeah, it's the lack of the sound.
Ford built a Mustang with an electric motor in it, one of their Cobra Jet cars. It runs mid-8s, right? Mm-hmm. I go to Las Vegas Motor Speedway every year at SEMA, right before SEMA for the NHRA race. When they make a pass, the line gets long at the beer tent because nobody cares to watch it. Yeah. Right? It just goes, you hear the tires squeal and it goes, nobody cares.
No,
right?
It's passionless.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sound, I mean, think about it. People complain in Formula One about, from the V10 era to today, that it's not, the sound isn't there, that it's muffled, it's just not the same passionate.
There's no personality.
Right. To me, this has got that guttural sound, it's acceleration, it's combustion, you hear it, you feel it, it's all the things you want in a competition type engine. So to me, it's like, yeah, this is what motorsports should be looking at and adopting as our future, so that we can be compliant with what needs to happen in the rest of the world. We can still go race, we can still have fun, and we can do it clean, you can do it with hydrogen. And oh, by the way, it's only the most abundant element in the universe. There's no shortage of hydrogen anywhere.
Yep.
Is the technology there for someone to have fill stations at their house? Like, as this progresses, could you have the thing to produce your own hydrogen at home?
Ultimately, you will be able to. Not right now. You know, the thing you still don't want to forget, the hydrogen is explosive, right? If you hit it with some kind of flame, it'll burn, right? I get people that call me all the time because there's a lot of information on this and what we're doing out there. And I got a guy that called me 2 weeks ago, and he wants to take hydrogen and spray it above his carburetor and thinking that the engine will pull it in and it's going to work. I said, no, don't do that. He's like, well, no, I think it'll work. I said, if you're wrong, you're dead. It's that simple, right? This requires trained professionals to do this, experts in the field. You just don't go off and half do this, right? It'd be like making your own dynamite.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm going to mix up a little nitroglycerin because that sounds like fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And then there's a big hole where your house used to be, right? But you have to do it safe. You have to do it with the right level of components. We've gone to great lengths to engineer every component that's in this vehicle. And we've gone to tremendous amounts of safety. We follow, so Bosch, General Motors, a number of Society of Automotive Engineers, all have defined safety practices for working with hydrogen. We follow all of them, right? It's not worth it to me to have somebody that works for me or myself or whatever to get hurt. It's all of the development in the world and all of the technology in the world and all the accomplishments aren't worth a human life.
Absolutely.
So you have to do it safely, and that's what we do. This thing all started with a retirement party, and then we're sitting in the conference room afterwards just BSing. Well, in 2011, I built a car for Jay Leno, a 2011 Camaro with a twin turbocharged direct injected V6. First time direct injection had ever been turbocharged. Bosch did the ECM for GM in that car, so I had contacted Keith and we had worked together to build Jay's car.
Okay.
Part of our deal was that I supplied him with an additional set of parts so they could use those parts to build a car of their own. Because as they said, when you go to meet with an OE or a big manufacturer or whatever, it's one thing, everybody comes in, does these beautiful PowerPoint presentations, talks about all this stuff, but he said it's one thing to do that, it's another to saying if you want to drive it, it's in the parking lot. Right. So they built that Camaro, I helped them put it together. They still have it from 2011. So we got on the subject of, you know, hydrogen and all kinds of other stuff, and they asked if I would be interested in converting that car to hydrogen. So we talked about what they wanted out of it and what their plans were, everything else, and it just didn't make sense to do that car. Okay. But I had this truck sitting on a hoist. It was really just a cab sitting on a chassis, nothing else done. And I said, what if we build this truck? You support me with what you know about hydrogen, I'll take care of all the rest. We'll build the truck, we'll build the engine, we'll build all the fuel system components, you support with injectors and ECM and some calibration support. And let's build this and we'll debut it at SEMA. I have a deal with Redline Oil where every year I put a new car in their booth at SEMA, so most people aren't lucky enough to have that kind of guaranteed spot.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right, but Redline's been a great supporter for a long time. So anyway, we agreed to do it. So we set about building a truck. It took us 10 weeks to build this. That's body, paint, interior, engine, chassis, full. I mean, 10 weeks from the time we started until we fired it up and took it to SEMA. It's been a battle. We've learned so much. I have some great people that help me. My chief engineer, Al Butlin, phenomenal, and he has so much knowledge and so much skill, and there were things like, if you've never been in hydrogen, it's the smallest molecular structure known to man.
Right.
It's also the lightest element known to man. So if I release it, it goes straight up as fast as it can travel, right? If I use traditional like stainless fuel lines like we use in cars or hot rods, it will permeate right through it.
Yeah.
To keep that hydrogen inside a stainless line, it has to be 1/4 inch wall.
Yeah.
Right? So every piece you have to look at that way. That tank, when full, is 350 bar, so 5,074 PSI.
Yeah.
Okay. It's got 2 safety valves. If it were to actually have something happen, it'll vent itself. If you set hydrogen on fire, we did a test with Bosch where we created a hydrogen leak and actually lit it. It goes up so fast and mixes with the atmosphere, put itself out.
Cleans itself, yeah.
right? So there's a lot of misinformation. Everybody thinks about the Hindenburg, you know.
Because that was the paint that was burning, not the stuff inside, wasn't it?
Well, in the Hindenburg, they took a cloth balloon because they needed it light, but the hydrogen permeated right through the cloth. So they used 7 chemicals and then coated it with aluminum. So when they hit the power line, the aluminum created a short, blew a hole through it. There are very few pictures of when that happened in Hindenburg, but the hydrogen, you can see it escape and it goes straight up, right? Big flame, but it puts itself out. It burns 3 times as fast as gasoline. As far as we know, no one in the Hindenburg died from the fire. They died from it crashing. It got a lot of bad press. Still the #1 question that people ask me today, right? When
Hindenburg,
they see hydrogen. Yeah, Hindenburg. But this tank is DOT approved. It's been through all of the testing with the Department of Transportation.
Well, you mentioned the buses, and I think about, we were in California not long ago to do that video with Ed Pink, and they actually have public buses in LA that run on hydrogen, and they probably use those exact tanks.
They do, yeah. They make them in different sizes, obviously, but this one is, it holds just over 3 kilograms of hydrogen.
Yeah.
So,
and it's been that way for a while. I know there's from where Edelbrock's building was in Torrance, down the street, there was a Shell hydrogen station. It's been there for years.
Yeah.
It probably at least 5 or 6 more years.
Yep. California is the only state currently where they have commercial pumps that you just pull up to and buy hydrogen. There's a lot going on with it. They're building a bunch of them, and it's coming.
I know in this channel we typically do history videos. This is more current, but I believe that this is history in the making. Like we said before, a lot of the popular videos on YouTube about hydrogen are ones that are saying why it doesn't work. Well, for every great thing, there has always been a million people saying why it doesn't work, why it can't work, why it's a bad idea, blah, 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 blah. And then it takes one guy to look past that and actually sit down, do the work, and figure it out, get away from the chalkboard, and get a wrench in your hand and just do it. Now there's a lot more stuff we talked about off camera that we can't tell you, but you'll find out about it in due time. And as a car enthusiast, I think it's our duty to make sure people know about this. So send this to a friend, post it on your social media pages, do whatever you can to get this out there, because the system may not do it for us. I don't think it's in our favor when it comes to this topic. Hopefully you feel like this history in the making too, because I do. Hair on my arm standing up right now. We are not at the mercy of defund suckers. Not at all. It got stupid one person at a time. It can get better one person at a time. Be that one person for your circle. It will change, but nobody's gonna come out of the sky and just fix it. It's a one person at a time, one day at a time deal. And it's gonna take all of us. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the awesome stuff coming up. And check out all the stuff we've already done. Lots of technical, lots of history, lots of racing. Sneak peek of the race car back there for those of you who watch everything we do. Has not been shown anywhere yet, but we're getting there.